to develop athletes over a long-term period, a long time, to try and meet the demands of elite level football. So we might work on things like strength, power, endurance, agility over a really long period of time. A lot of these physical qualities that we work on are shown here at the bottom of the screen, but that's not really... So glad I came here tonight, and I see you got what I wanted, maybe you got what I like. I can see that you're watching me come over, talk to me, need you to give me a sign. You got that something sweet that don't come easily, it's what I need tonight. I came here for someone to hold me down. I won't give it up. No, I want you to reach out. I came here for level. I'm going to talk you through a few of these in a little bit more detail. So I'm going to start with this one, a former teammate of Mikael's, and here's what he had to say in terms of some of the experiences of his upbringing.
Onto the footy boots, you actually started out as a ballet dancer, I hear. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've never been someone who wanted to be pigeonholed in any part of my life. And, I'm from like a council estate where ballet wouldn't normally fit. But I was quite a confident young guy in my friends group, and I wasn't afraid to go and try something new. I got scouted to go to a ballet school called the Central School of Ballet, one of the best ballet schools in London. And I ended up staying there for 4 years, and to be fair,
Wayne Rooney took part in boxing from a young age up to around 15 when he was at the Everton Academy. And again, in terms of developing upper body strength, in terms of developing core strength, and again, those social skills, those psychological skills, in terms of that determination, something that is really 800 metres, 1500 metres, as well as 100 metres, 200 metres. And I think you can see that in terms of his game, some of the examples of speed that he possesses, or used to possess. Erling Haaland, had to get a picture of him in the Norway kit and not our rivals, but again, someone who took part in cross-country skiing, handball, athletics, and again, he's just a monster. The way that he plays, the athleticism that he possesses, is phenomenal. It's frightening, and it's a shame he obviously plays for our local rivals. But again, someone who's developed through a multi-sports background. An amazing image, a fantastic image. So Zlatan Ibrahimovic again represented the club, played at the very, very highest level, achieved his black belt in Taekwondo. He progressed through they're not great movers, the athleticism isn't great. But in terms of a couple of examples here, so Joe Hart played cricket. So in terms of that hand-eye coordination, in terms of that upper body strength, and that sprinting speed from wicket to wicket as well, can translate to goalkeeping. And Matt Turner, so the USA #1, didn't actually play soccer until around 16 years of age. But took part in other sports. Obviously, in America, they play many different sports through different seasons. So took part in basketball and baseball. Their energy levels topped up to meet these demands. So when we speak about eating early, again, we sometimes see the problem of players coming into training on a morning or before a game, and they won't have breakfast, which is absolutely crazy because they might not have eaten at 7 o'clock, might have been the last time that they eaten the evening before, and then they're going until 10, 11, 12 o'clock the next day before eating. That's far too late, that's far too long. They need to be eating breakfast, they need to be fueling themselves up for the day and to kickstart their metabolism. Eating balanced as well, so as much as possible at every meal, if we can get in these four, to have an evening meal when they get home. So again, some will get home, will go straight to bed, and they won't have anything until they have breakfast the next day. So we really try and encourage the parents to make sure they are having a meeting on our types of foods that we're taking in, our timing, what times we're eating, and we've got our total amounts on the right hand side. So over the course.
Good morning, everybody. Firstly, thank you for inviting us back to Hong Kong. As Alex said, we were privileged to come in the summer for the Hong Kong. They tend to get more pain around the tendon or in the muscle itself, whereas children tend to get injuries in and around the growth sites and the apophysis. What we know is that as you grow, the forces that the body has to deal with increase. The closure of the growth plate occurs at different times, and what we know is that in the younger ages, the feet and the hands are often areas that are more vulnerable, and we often see that people complain of isn't fully developed until they're in their 30s. So youth athletes are at increased risk of broken bones, fractures, and stress injuries to bones. Once they get into their 20s and that bone strength is a lot better, and that continues to improve into their 30s, we know that that risk goes down. So you see a lot less broken bones in adults, you see a lot less bone stress injuries. And that's the same for male and female athletes. We know that unlike adults, children go through vulnerable periods. So they go through spikes in growth. So what you'll often see is that children go through phases where they're growing really, really rapidly. So they can sometimes be growing up to 10, 12 centimetres over a year. And during these times, these are times where some things that coaches might see when they're going through this period of time. So you can often get a player that is at 9, 10, 11, looking like they're a great mover, they're a great player. And then as they start to go through this increased period of growth, they can start to look a little bit untidy. They can maybe appear like they're not striking the ball cleanly. They've maybe lost a little bit of mobility when they previously were a great mover. And then at the time of their peak growth, they can look quite inconsistent, weaker neck muscles, their skull bones haven't still quite developed, and they can't quite process as well as adults. So because of this, they have an increased risk of concussion. Adults, on the other hand, their risk tends to be based on their experience and things that they've experienced in their past. We know that their skull is fully matured, so they've got a good protective casing to the brain, and they've got stronger neck muscles. So they're much rated. So during sports, particularly in hot climates, you will often lose a lot of water, you'll lose a lot of electrolytes through your sweat. So it's really important that people are hydrated. And sleep. So sleep is, again, as we'll discuss on a future slide, but sleep is a really, really important recovery tool. It helps them to recover mentally and physically from the sport that they've taken part in. There are lots of other things that you can do, but these are lower down the priority list. So, for example, a lower level to make sure that you're taking on enough for the demands of the sports that you're wanting to take part in. If you're regularly active, if you're doing things every day, the body needs the right fuel, and it's really important. So this data is the same as some of the ones that Alex shared before, but this is from academy footballers, but it's exactly the same situation in grassroots footballers. So it's exactly the same issue that we have. It's just really making sure that people are fueling appropriately. We know that children, as we said, experience a lot more bony injuries. So it's important to build really strong bones in childhood. And how do we do that? Well, as Alex touched on, we get them to do lots of different movement strategies. So we want them to participate in lots of different sports. If they're doing the same sport over and over again, all that happens is the body just gets used to one sport, and when you ask it to do something different, that's when the body gets put at risk of injury. We want children to be active, we want them to enjoy, we want them to love sport.
So I'm going to talk a little bit this morning around, to begin with, around the foundations of what we believe in the Academy at Man United. So my role there is the lead academy psychologist, but I also sit as part of the academy leadership team, where we, I guess, try and look to create and deliver a strategy for developing young players and creating a philosophy around the way that the things that we believe in. I guess just to begin by sharing this kind of first slide, what I'm going to go through really is about the vision, the mission, and some of the priorities that we have in the academy. I guess what that really tries to get across first and foremost is that yes, as an academy, we want to try and develop footballers, but we also want to try and develop people. And developing young people is the real priority for us. And that opportunities, I guess, the type of environments that we want to create, how we give feedback, the structure of our environments is really important to us. And then a little bit with some of our older players around this profiling and screening. And I wanted to kind of show this slide really to try and answer the question of like, what is it that psychologist does? Because if I had 10 Hong Kong dollars for every time someone asked me, what do you actually do? I probably wouldn't be here today. So what I wanted to try and get across here is that psychology is involved in a whole range of different things. So that first bit on there is about parent engagement, which is about the work that we do with parents. And I use the word engagement deliberately. The work that I do with, one of the things that often gets overlooked is looking at the environment that talent is developed in. So thinking about the environment that we create for young people creates a different lens for us to think about developing talent. And if we look at some of these examples here, so the image with Jesse Lingard playing against I guess a much more physically developed player, I guess what it tells us that success in football can't all be about kind of innate characteristics, because if it was the case, then it would just be the boys who are biggest, quickest, strongest who go on to be successful. And we know that footballers come in all different shapes and sizes. If developing talent is all about the practice and the activities that people are engaged in, then it would be practically impossible for players like Kobe Mainoo to make debuts at 17, 18 because they wouldn't have been able to accumulate enough practice hours. But what it probably tells us is that it's a combination of a range.
In terms of being aware of that, so if it's not a positive environment from the coaches, but also from the parents, if they're not all the stuff from the research really, if they're not encouraged in a positive way and are able to form that love of the game, I think it's really important that the influence that can have, whether it is on the journey at the academy to become a professional player or just have a lifelong love of sport, a lifelong love of the game. So my advice to parents would be just work in terms of and support your child as best you can. So go along with it with them, and they'll need you at certain points.
We do have very specified and very advanced methods of nurturing young players. And next up, I think for some of you, it might be the most anticipated part of this morning's workshop, where we'll be chatting with former Manchester United defender and France international Mikael Silvestre. So without further ado, let's invite him up to the stage, and please give a big hand to Mikael Silvestre. It's very good to have you here with us today, Mikael. How are you doing?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Is it your first time in Hong Kong, or have
No, I've been many times in Hong Kong. I was here lately for the Chinese New Year. I played the Legends game.
Yeah, that was a good game, wasn't it?
It was fun.
It's a good crowd, good atmosphere, and it's just a great time for us fans as well, just to see you guys in action after seeing you on TV for so long. It's good to see you in the flesh, and it's good to have you here today with us in the workshop. And today's workshop is very much about youth development, and you've had a very unique background coming through in France, but you were able to witness the youth development in Manchester United firsthand when you were first team player there. What would you say would be the biggest difference between youth development in France and from what you've seen in England?
So I would say that in France we have kind of one model, which is at the age of 15, you join a boarding school. Whereas in England, I think it's still the same, you stay in families. So for me, that's a big difference. And yeah, I was trying to find the pros and cons on both models. You know, so I would say that I made my best friends during that time because we were 24/7 together. So we had successes together, we struggled together when we were talking about having a defeat and having to deal with the defeat. The only people we could talk to and get comfort from were the teammates.
At your time at Manchester United, obviously every year there'll be youngsters coming through. Do you remember which young player, when you were playing, made the most impression on you?
Well, so because the team was quite young when I joined, there wasn't a lot of room for players to come through the academy, you know. If you think about the class of 92, they stayed around for quite a while. Some of them never left, like Gary Neville, you know, and Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes. So yeah, they didn't make room for a lot of players to come through the ranks. But so I would say Darren Fletcher and John O'Shea were the one that made the break and enjoyed training early on. I think Darren was 17 when he started coming, and sometimes he would join, sometimes he wouldn't train for a period of time because he had a growth, he was growing burst at some time, so he had knee issues. So the coaching staff was balancing his involvement with us, because when you have to face a tackle from Jaap Stam or Wesley Brown and you're 17, you're not quite ready, so you got to be careful. And John O'Shea also was ready early on to play with us. And it's kind of obvious with Garnacho and Kobe. You know, they've had a lot of game time this season, maybe not as expected when you originally start pre-season and you look at the squad, because those two positions, top players, international players for this opposition in midfield, whether it's a defensive mid for Kobe or as a winger for Garnacho. So yeah, these two this year they've done extremely well. We know the team has been struggling, but it's even more positive on their side, because to be performing like they did when the team is lacking confidence and not getting results shows that they have courage.
So what do you think would be the different challenges that they face, given that Kobe came through Manchester United system, but for somebody like Garnacho is joining from Spain?
Yeah, compared to my time when I came, obviously I wasn't a teenager. I was 21 when I joined United. I had experience abroad already at Inter Milan, so I've been into an impressive dressing room with Ronaldo, Zanetti, Diego Simeone, Roberto Baggio, big legends. So for them to join that team also would be impressive, but I think the biggest challenge is that the team is not on top of the game like it was when I joined Inter Milan or when I joined Manchester United. So yeah, it's not as easy as it was for me. So I think that's number one. Number two is getting the consistency, because that's what is required to remain in the starting 11. You can't have, let's say you score to 10, you can't have an 8, a 9, and then the next game or during the week with your coaches, you learn a few stuff. You work on your basic, you work on the technique, you work after when it's time to work on tactical positioning. It's something that you should focus on, so the stress and the anxiety yeah, they did not disappear because you need a certain level of stress to stay in the game. You can't be fully relaxed to perform, but I think, yeah, they are in the background then.
Thank you. So please be reminded that if your question was picked, you can win an autographed cap from Mikael. Please contact our staff later on. And before we go, just one last question I'm almost asking on behalf of the crowd, because there are quite a lot of Manchester United fans with us today, and I think this is a question that they might want to know. What was Sir Alex Ferguson like to the young players coming through for the team?
For the young players?
For the young players.
Well, even for the old players. He was treating everybody the same. And that was his main strength, I would say. So I think his management style would be iron fist in a velvet glove, you know, because he could be easily talking to us at any point of the day, in any situation about his childhood, growing up in Scotland. And the next minute, shouting at one individual or players for not performing or misbehaving, you know, even player like Cristiano Ronaldo winning 3-0 away. I can't remember the team we were facing, but he missed a sitter because he took the piss, to speak honestly. And the manager gave him a big hair dryer treatment at the end of the game. You know, there was no room for disrespecting the game and the team and the badge. So 26 years, a lot of successes, and you know, we were talking about nutrition, mental preparation.
And one more thing, we do have a survey with you. If you could kindly scan the QR code, you could send this.